Ladies and gentlemen, Ducks of all ages, the Season 2 patch notes just dropped, and with all the content dropping today, we might as well get this out as quickly as possible to get your thoughts and opinions on everything that's changing. So getting started directly with the Vanguards section, we have Captain America. It says Steve will undergo some adjustments to his survivability, leading to a slight decrease in his overall resilience. Reduced base health from 675 to 650, which is a pretty, I wouldn't say insane change, but definitely a solid base. And then they reduced the shield value of Living Legend from 400 to 350. Now this is actually interesting to me. They're kind of nerfing his survivability, which in my opinion, Captain America struggles currently in the current meta with Magneto, Doctor Strange, Venom, Groot. It's really hard to play Captain America. Of course, there's always going to be those one players that play him extremely well, so shout out to you. But again, it's just kind of weird to me. Now for Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme will see a reduction in his offensive capabilities, limiting his battlefield control. So they decrease the daggers of damage per projectile from 18 to 16, which is his primary base attack. So pretty significant change. I mean, 2 damage points. I mean, it could mean the difference between an elimination and someone getting away. And then they reduced the Maelstrom of Mantis conversion ratio of dark magic to damage from 1.3 to 1.2. Again, 1.3 to 1.2 isn't a massive change, but it is definitely decreasing his impact. Will I say this is getting rid of this character in the current meta? No, not necessarily, but you might be more apt to change characters. For Hulk, the Green Goliath will boast enhanced maneuverability and improved survivability. So they increase his base movement speed from 600 to 650, which is pretty solid. Reduce the cooldown time for the Indestructible Guard from 12 seconds to 10 seconds. And I believe his Indestructible Guard is actually his shield, which can be used to block a lot of things and reduce a lot of incoming damage. So this is a pretty solid change for this character. Then they decrease the minimum charge time for Incredible Leap from 0.7 seconds to 0.5, so he can spam his jump button a lot more now, get a lot more space, create a lot more distance. So this is a very solid change for really getting this character to move around a lot, which again, I really like, making him a more dive-oriented character, more so than what he has been, but this is a really nice change. So for Magneto, the Master of Magnetism will experience a slight decrease in the frequency of his ultimate ability. Now this is what I like. This is a good change so that hopefully your supports can ult without having that fear of the Meteor M or Giant Meatball raining down on you. So they increase the energy cost of Meteor M ultimate ability from 3,100 to 3,400. It's definitely a good start. Definitely a nerf I saw coming. It was either to reduce his ultimate, his damage, the cost, or they do something about his shields. And they decided to go for the Meteor M with the energy cost, which I think is a very solid change. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's definitely needed to balance the rest of the Vanguards and make the strategist's life a little bit easier, but definitely a solid change. What do you think about this Magneto change? This one has been a very interesting one for me. So Penny Parker. Penny will receive enhancements to her primary attack, damage, efficiency, and a boost to her survivability. This is nice. We want a Penny buff. She wasn't getting played a ton. Now I'm talking about higher elo, maybe mid-elo. She didn't seem like a character a lot of people wanted to pick, although there's always a few exceptions that people play her extremely well. But again, she wasn't picked too much. So her Cyber Web Cluster now has a chance to crit. That's insane. So they reduced the movement speed penalty while firing Cyber Web Cluster, which is her primary attack. I believe, I could be wrong, let me know in the comments down below. And then from 40% to 20%, which is a good change. And then they increased the base health from 650 to 750, which is a solid change. So this definitely makes her a lot more of a presence on the battlefield. This crit chance is nice. Again, the Cyber Web Cluster, I have to assume it's her primary attack. I don't play Penny, but probably. So this is good. She's going to be doing more damage and has more HP. So they decreased the Embodied Leap's damage reduction effect for himself and his teammates from 30% to 25%. Now, I'm not necessarily sure if this was like the biggest change they needed to do. I mean, that 30% damage reduction is very nice, But the 30 to 25, I mean, 5% can mean a lot. It's definitely a solid change. Now, what made the thing so strong is because he was a major counter to dive characters, and having that damage reduction was also nice. So this is definitely a solid change, nothing wrong with there. So Thor is getting a much needed buff. I know some players play him extremely well as he currently is, but he definitely needed some love. He wasn't necessarily getting picked a lot in my matches, I've noticed, meaning to the fact you just have better off tanks to deal with. So they increased his base health from 525 to 600, which is a solid change. That's a lot of HP, 75 to be exact. Then they increased his base movement speed from 600 to 650, which again, amazing. So starting with our duelist, we have Black Widow, and she's getting some much needed love, and she's added a new effect where Black Widow can directly shoot after releasing the second kick of Edge Dancer, and after using her ultimate, which I think this should have been something like from the start. Usually after you kick, your gun had to cock, do that reload animation, but now that animation's going to be gone and you can shoot right away. So if someone were to dive onto you, you could essentially get the elimination right away. Now Hawkeye, what did they do to my boy? We're improving Clint's mobility while drawing his bow, enhancing his combat capabilities, and increasing the threat of his ultimate ability. He's getting a buff! So they reduced the slow effect while charging the bow from 30 to 20, so he's a little bit more agile. Because Hawkeye lacks mobility as a sniping specialist, you think Black Widow, she has a sprint, she has a jump. Hawkeye has a double jump, sure he has a slash, but he only really has a double jump, that's all he has going for him. Hela, she can fly away, Hawkeye, this is a nice change in my opinion. So they increased both instances of damage for a hypersonic arrow from 50 to 55, which is a pretty solid change. Then they decreased the energy cost for Hunter's Sight from 3,700 to 3,100, and they improved the bow draw speed, increased from 1.35x to 1.5. This means you're going to be getting a lot more damage out, much quicker, at a lower cost, which Magneto was only at 3,100. So you would get Magneto Meteor M before you would actually get Hawkeyes if you're going solely based on the energy cost, which is kind of crazy to me. So Hela, the Goddess of Death, will see a reduction in mobility while slightly enhancing her offensive power. Increased cooldown time for Astral Flock from 12 seconds to 15, so she can't escape, not the end of the world. They increase the spell field damage of Piercing Knight, which is her alternative attack, her secondary, where she shoots out the spears and it blows up after a little bit of duration, from 30 to 35 damage. Then they decrease the cooldown time for Soul Drainer from 12 seconds to 10 seconds, which is your stun, that the suck, the little E, the interrupt, which is kind of crazy to me. It's kind of a nerf and a buff at the same time. They nerfed so she can't, fly away as much anymore, but they buffed her kit, which is very interesting to me when this character does still a ton of damage. So it really seems like Hela is a staple duelist at this point. They really like this duelist, and I don't think they really want to change with her. So if you want to play Marvel Rivals and you want to get high in ranks, probably have to pick up Hela, unfortunately. So Human Torch. So for Johnny, they reduced the attack interval for a fire cluster from 0.6 seconds to 0.5. The launch timing of the primary attack projectile has been advanced. Interesting, this is a nice change. Then they increased the cooldown for Flaming Meteor from 12 seconds to 15, which is his dive down and explode, but add a new effect. After releasing Flaming Meteor, immediately gains 75 bonus health, which will start to fall off 3 seconds later at a rate of 30 per second. Now this is a rather nice change, because typically if you were to dive in with Johnny, you're pretty much gonna get insta-eliminated. Of course, it depends on the team you're playing against, but most of the time you're gonna instantly get deleted if you don't have the proper setup before, so having this change is rather nice. Now, Iron Man is seeing improvements to his mid-range combat effectiveness. They slightly reduced the Iron Man's hitbox size, so making him a little bit harder to hit. Hopefully they didn't cook it too much. New feature, gain 100 bonus health, activating Armor Overdrive or Gamma Overdrive that will start to fall off 5 seconds later at a rate of 30 per second. So this is rather interesting. So once you act, so you could be like 1 HP, you're about to get eliminated, pop this, maybe you can live a little bit longer, receive that much needed healing. This is a nice change to Iron Man. This is just a full change to his survivability. This is seeing improvements to his mid-range combat. This isn't really anything with mid-range, this is literally just has to do with survivability, which I think is really good. But I guess the mid-range comes because, what am I saying? I guess the mid-range comes with the Armor Overdrive or Gamma. You have to be rather close to deal a ton of damage, so again, pretty solid. So Iron Fist will see an increase in his combat effectiveness against Vanguards, a slight improvement to his mobility, and a slight reduction to his survivability when first entering combat. So they reduce the bonus max health gain from Harmony Recovery from 150 to 100, but slow the fall off rate of that health from 25 per second to 15. So that bonus HP is going to be lingering a little bit longer. However, you only get 100 instead of 150, so that's pretty nice. For lower fixed damage of whatever this is, I don't want to mispronounce it, so I'm not even going to say it, from 10 to 9, but increase the percentage damage of the enemy's max health per strike from 1.7 to 2.1. So I assume that this is his primary attack, so they're increasing the percentage damage of the enemy's max health per strike from 1.7 to 2.1. So this is really turning him into more solidified as a tank eliminator rather than this kind of sat in between, not sure where he wants to attack. This really cements him further towards that side of Wolverine and Scarlet Witch. So overall, pretty solid change. And then they decrease the cooldown for his kick from 12 seconds to 10 so he can escape a lot faster, deal a little bit more damage and things like that. So pretty solid change. Mr. Fantastic. So they're finally buffing him. So they're increasing his base health from 350 to 375, which doesn't seem like a lot. It's 15 HP, but could mean the difference between staying alive or getting eliminated. So pretty solid change, as he is kind of like an off tank. They boost the damage of Stretch Punch from 60 to 65 and from 75 to 80 while in inflated state. Pretty solid change. So Flexible Elongation, new effect. Enemies within range now suffer a 35% slow effect, reduce flexible elongation cooldown time from 10 to 8 seconds. So this is a pretty massive change, honestly. That 35% slow effect seems crazy. And then they reduce the elasticity gain from elastic strength passive ability from 30 to 20, while the elasticity provided by Stretch Punch is increased from 5 to 8. After entering the inflated state, the bonus health provided to self has been reduced from 450 to 400. New feature, when Mr. Fantastic uses Brainiac Bounce, which is his ultimate ability, immediately gain bonus health equal to that gained when entering inflated state. That's pretty insane. So he's going to be a little bit harder to kill when he's in that ultimate form. Now moving down the list, we have none other than our man, Moonknight. So they're optimizing his blade projectile bounce feedback while improving maneuverability, ultimate ability, and survivability. So Moonknight literally got the works. You got everything buffed. So they increase his crescent dart projectile speed from 120 to 150, meaning more damage essentially. And then the Moon Blade new effect, gain 25 bonus. Gain 25 bonus health with each hit up to max of 100. 3 seconds after the bonus health stops increasing. That's crazy. That's actually insane. No? Isn't that insane? This is like actually insane. That's insane. Basically, you get HP each time you hit somebody. If I'm reading that correctly, that's insane. No? It didn't speed up Moonlight Hook pull startup time from 0.4 seconds to 0.15 so you can escape a little bit better. Except for, when you go to grapple, there's kind of like a little bit delay to get swung up into the air, so hopefully this changes that. Then they extended the duration of Hand of Khonshu ultimate ability from 3.5 seconds to 1.5, so a 1 second improvement, and increased the number of talons generated during this period from 14 to 18. This means more damage. Additionally, the fall speed of these talons have been slightly enhanced. A new damage fall-off mechanic for that spell field has been added, beginning at 1.5 meters from the center and reaching a maximum reduction of 70% at 5 meters. Meaning, if you're more towards the center, it's going to be doing, more damage as opposed to the outer ring, which is definitely a nice change. His ultimate did need some love after it was heavily nerfed previously, after it was completely broken before. That nerf kind of put him off the map. He was kind of treated obsolete unless you were going against the Loki. So having this change is nice. Moving on, we have Scarlet Witch. So we're reducing Wanda's survivability, but increasing her threat level against Strategist and Duelist while optimizing her ultimate ability. So what I read from this is you're going to be changing her damage without even looking at these changes. They're going to be changing her damage from that percentage base health to maybe something else. So they removed the chaos control percent damage while increasing fixed damage from 60 to 80. This is a complete change. So that percentage damage was based on more HP on people, more damage you're going to be doing, so they just removed that, I guess. So, but instead you're going to be doing more damage the longer you're stuck on someone. And then they increased the burst projectile, which is the alternative attack, from 35 to 40, and the spell field damage from 35 to 40. So this character is going to be doing a ton of damage now. And then they increased the cooldown of Mystic Projection from 8 seconds to 10, which is the shift or the movement ability, and reduced the phase state time from 2 to 1.5 seconds, which is a pretty good change. And then they reworked the slow effect of the Reality Eraser to start at 1.5 seconds instead of starting immediately, with a linear increase to a 35% slow over 3.5 seconds. So that means you should be able to move a little bit when you're ulting, maybe, if I read that correctly. Sorry if I didn't. Moving on, we have Star-Lord, and they reduced his Blast Barrage, which is his E ability damage, from 80 per second to 75, which is 5 damage, change. Nothing crazy, but it could mean the difference between, again, getting an Elim or not. And then they introduce a new damage fall-off mechanic starting at 4 meters and maxing out at 80% reduction at 8 meters. So, pretty solid. Now, Winter Soldier. This is where people are torn. We're lowering Bucky's threat level against Vanguards and reducing the margin for error in his ultimate ability. So they increased the cooldown time for his Bionic Hook from 8 seconds to 12, which is a pretty significant change. And then they reduced the base damage of Kraken Impact from 100 to 80. That's a pretty big change. But lowered the culling threshold from 20% of maximum health to 15. So pretty solid change. Wait. Yeah, pretty good change. Nothing too crazy, pretty solid. Now, for Wolverine, returning Logan's Rage acquisition rate and slightly lowering his control intensity over enemies. So his increased rage gain from Savage Claw hits from 7 to 10, while rage gain from Berserk Claw Strike, which is his alternative attack, has decreased from 7 to 5. Reduced rage gained from Pharaoh Leap from 20 to 10, and from Vicious Rampage to 20 to 15. However, rage gained from taking damage has been increased to 3 to 5. So basically what they're saying is you want to be getting shot more, essentially. That's kind of what it is. Instead of trying to do all the damage you can, you're kind of more fit to trying to survive a little bit. Which is a rather interesting, take or change for this character, as he's been so heavily reliant on going in, kidnapping a tank and doing whatnot. But it seems like they kind of want you to go into the enemy team, linger in their backline a little bit, then grab a tank. This allows you to build up the rage, grab the tank, and then do the damage. So, pretty cool. And then they reduce the time an enemy is knocked down after impact from Last Stand from 1 second to 0.75, so maybe you can actually survive his ultimate. Who knows? Moving on to Strategist. So we're slightly reducing the frequency of Adam's abilities and adjusting the healing provided by his ultimate after reviving teammates. Now, they increased the cooldown for Soul Bond from 30 to 40 seconds. This is exactly what I thought they were going to do. You're probably not going to do anything to Soul Bond. The only change I could see doing is that they increase the cooldown, meaning that this character as a counter dive character might be a little bit of a lesser pick now, because the whole point for picking Adam when there is an enemy dive composition was having that Soul Bond. Now that it's to 40 seconds, it might be not the best pick anymore. That 10-second, that's insane. The 10 seconds is insane to me. But Karmic Revival ultimate ability now restores 30% of fallen allies' maximum health instead of a fixed 100 health. So that means you shouldn't be getting one-shotted by Kraken Impact the second you res your team, so that's nice. So Cloak and Dagger. We're optimizing the logic of this dynamic duo's ultimate ability. So the duration of the first 3 healing zones will no longer be calculated separately. Instead, they will remain active until the duration of the final healing zone ends, at which they will be removed altogether. So that's interesting. So it makes her a little bit better, or makes them a little bit better. I mean, it's a pretty cool change. Nothing ending. So for Invisible Woman, they decreased the shield value of Guardian Shield from 300 to 250. That's it? Okay. Loki, this is where I also figured what they were going to do. They increased the regeneration domain cooldown. 25 seconds to 30 seconds, so you really have to be aware of what's going on in this situation to get the most value of this ability, as it's already an amazing ability. Knowing the timings is an even more must. That's why this character is so macro or micro managing, demanding. So for Mantis, they reduce her base health from 275 to 250. That's an interesting change. Effects of Healing Valor and allied inspirations can be stacked up to a maximum of 16 seconds, which is a nice change. So basically, she can stack her abilities now, which is cool. But they did reduce the HP, which is a little bit interesting. Then for Rocket's healing abilities will see some adjustments to enhance team survivability while balancing his mobility. So they decrease the healing area of repair mode spears from 70 health a second to 50 health a second, but add a new effect of one-time healing of 55 health to allies hit. So you're going to be shooting out your healing from repair mode. The second it hits a teammate, 55 health, and then it's going to do the 50 healing a second. So instead of just spamming your healing orbs everywhere, having and actually aiming your healing orbs is going to be a crucial aspect now. And then the projectile speed reduction increased from 4.5 meters per second to 7. And then the extended cooldown for jetpack dash from 6 seconds to 10. And then they reduced the dash distance from 10 meters to 8. Pretty interesting. It looks like they're not changing anything about his BRB, which is nice. I don't think anything needs to be done. But they did reduce the CYA, or ultimate ability damage boost, from 40% to 25. Major change. But add a new effect. During the ability's duration, linked allies will receive an additional 100 bonus health points per second, capping at 150. After breaking the link, this bonus starts to fall off after 1 second at a rate of 75 per second. Additionally, increase the energy cost from 3,700 to 4,000. So this essentially, Rocket Raccoon's ultimate is working both as an offensive ultimate and defensive ultimate at the same time. So once these buffs are actually in play, you can no longer flame your Rocket for having his ultimate. You can no longer flame him for it not being a defensive ultimate, as it literally provides healing now, so you can't keep blaming your Rockets for your loss anymore. Sorry. I think it's funny, but it's overall a very solid change to Rocket, and overall solid change to all the strategists. I'm surprised Luna was not on this list for changes. Now, I don't think Luna needs to be changed in any way, shape, or form, but I'm just surprised that she's not even mentioned on here. Now, team up abilities, let's talk about these. So, new. The Arcane Order is with Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch, and as a team up anchor, Doctor Strange gains a maximum health increase of 100. Scarlet Witch unlocks a new magical mystic burst ability through her team up with Doctor Strange. It doesn't say exactly the amount of damage she does, but it's a new unlocked and it looks pretty cool in the video. And then stars align Captain America, Winter Soldier. So as a team up anchor, Captain America, so you have to have a Captain America on your team first, and then you can have a Winter Soldier. He gains a maximum health increase of 100 and a 5% boost in damage output, which is kind of crazy. Winter Soldier unlocks the devastating stellar impact ability through his team up with Captain America. And when we saw in the trailer, it kind of looked like the Thing's leap ability when he jumps to a teammate, although it didn't look like it applied a damage reduction. That's how it worked, which is pretty cool. So then mental protection is Emma Frost, Psylocke, and Magneto. Emma Frost is going to be your anchor. As the team up anchor, Emma Frost gains a maximum health increase of 100. Magneto receives the magnetic words are hard ability through his team up with Emma Frost, and then Psylocke receives the Soul Resurgence ability through her teammate with Emma Frost. So, what I think this is, maybe it's a revive. I don't think it is. It could be that though. Psylocke receives a Soul Resurgence. So you're resurging the soul, resurrecting the soul. Maybe you come back to life, who knows? That'd be kind of crazy. You res Magneto and Psylocke. I don't think they would do that. That's insane. But if it is, that's pretty cool. But I think that would be way too strong, so I don't think it is going to be it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you think they're doing? Voice crack. Okay, so adjusted or removed. So they're kicking Winter Soldier out of the infinite ammo. So he won't get that anymore. They're kicking Namor out of Chilling Charisma, so he loses the Frozen Spawn ability, which is a pretty significant thing. So Dimensional Shortcut, they're kicking Psylocke out of that, so it's only going to be Magik and Black Panther. Gamma Charge is Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Namor. This is interesting. Doctor Strange loses the Gamma Maelstrom ability previously gained from his team up with Hulk. Namor now gains the Gamma Monstro ability through his team up with Hulk. So I believe on the video it said it was Hulk, Namor, and Iron Man. No longer Doctor Strange because the team up with Scarlet Witch. So Metallic Chaos, Scarlet Witch, and Magneto, this is gone. This is kind of sad because I actually liked this when you were playing Magneto. It then Voltonic Union, Thor, Captain America, Storm. It's gone. No longer a thing anymore. Do I think this is good changes? Sure, it definitely shakes up the meta, shakes up characters to play, what team-ups go well with one another now. I'm very curious to how this is all going to be played. I think now, I don't know, getting rid of this Luna Snow Namor is massive. I think it's insane. Like, this is a massive change that's definitely going to shake up the entire meta, mainly because Namor and Luna is such a staple in the current meta. You have that damage amp from Luna Snow's ultimate when she hits Q again. Damage, send out the whale, one-shot the squishy characters instantly. Having that extra Monstro spawn with the slow, insane. So all of these changes are pretty gnarly. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think these changes are needed? I think they're needed, but if you could change them yourself, would you do it the same way? But of course, let me know. And of course, if you're new here or find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't already subscribed yet, why not? It's completely free and you're coming back anyways. It's been DuckFilms. I hope you have a great day and I'll catch you in the next one.